Talking about the big pivot, it's a book that I just finished a draft of, so I'm very excited about. And the concept is that we're facing a very extreme world now. The extreme transparency, extreme resource constraints, extreme weather and climate change. And that companies need to pivot in a very, very fundamental way from the way we operate today, which is we maximize profits in the short run, and then we get to sustainability and environmental and social issues when we feel like it, when the hurdle rate is right, when we get enough pressure. We need to flip that so that we're solving the world's problems from the business community and working back from there and saying, how do we do that most profitably? Using markets, using capitalism. And the winners will win a lot, and the losers will lose, and it'll look just like business today, but it'll be functioning in a very different way. I think there's a few things that are going to make maybe a lot of companies uncomfortable, but one is very tactical. One is that we have to set goals in companies based on science, not on what we think we can do, not bottom up. The way we do it now often is we say, well, we cut emissions or water or waste 10% in the last 5 years, and maybe we can do 10% again, rather than how much do we have to meet what the physics and math of climate change are telling us, or how much, given the resource constraints we have of water and other inputs, do we have to do? So setting goals based on science is a big one for me. Changing the way we lobby, the way we approach policy in companies, and that's the panel I'm doing here at Sustainable Brands this year. Companies right now look at Washington as a place to go and basically stop all regulation and all activity from the government. That's what a good government relations person does. We have to change that to be a much more proactive role, that companies have to ask for things like a price on carbon, things that they're just not normally set up to do, or we're really, I think, not going to make it. We can't move fast enough without certain policy changes. Some of it's just leadership. I mean, like if you look at a company like Unilever where the CEO has said, I'm not going to really talk to Wall Street so much, and that's another one of the big pivot things, is we have to change the way we talk to Wall Street. The core of the problem at companies is short-termism, is focusing on just this quarter or year. You need leadership, right? You need someone who's going to say, we're going to do it first. Now, I think there is first mover advantage in a lot of cases, but the reality is that the whole idea of externalities, I think, is going away. The idea that climate change is some future problem, or that resource constraints are some future problem as they get more expensive, doesn't really make any sense anymore. We're getting hit with it today. It's not some future state, it's now. So actually, the incentive is that companies are getting affected by it in a very real way today. Their facilities are under risk by droughts, by floods, by climate change, and the price they're paying for almost every input into our economy has risen dramatically in the last 10 years. So this is not a future issue. This is today. These are real business costs. So I think the idea of externalities is kind of going away, and they're becoming internalized every day. So it is just in business interest. But we have a lot of inertia and a lot of kind of natural, visceral reaction against tackling these issues in business. They feel like they're somehow not business-like, that we have to get over. There's just some psychology, frankly, that I think we have to move past. So the concept that I talk about of companies on sustainability being guilty until proven innocent is that if you look at what we spend money on in companies, huge chunks of money go to marketing. And I used to work in marketing and branding mainly. Marketing, R&D, new countries to enter, new markets. We don't ask for an exact ROI. We assume that it's something we should spend on, that it's good for business, that it's strategic. When it comes to something like sustainability, if it's called sustainability, we're going to invest in environment, we're going to invest in renewable energy, or we're going to invest to reduce toxicity in a product, we get this question about what's the exact ROI, prove it. Again, there's this visceral sense that somehow it's anti-business. And I'd like to see sustainability move into the bucket of the things that we know are core to what a business has to do right, and that frankly we spend a lot of money on. Like we spend a lot of money on marketing, and the question I always ask is, what's the ROI on a Super Bowl ad? We spend millions and millions of dollars and we don't have an exact ROI. There's no such thing, we can't know. And we just accept that in business because we know it's strategic. And the leaders in a company are allowed to make those decisions without being sued for fiduciary responsibility. They're just allowed to make strategic decisions. They can do the same with sustainability investments. The intuitive response to sustainability, if you want to call it that, runs both ways. Like I think again there's this kind of inherent reaction in business quite often that it isn't about business, that it's about philanthropy or corporate social responsibility. Those are really important concepts, but that's not what I'm talking about or what I think we're mostly talking about at a conference like this. We're talking about real business results, building brands that are sustainable and connected to consumers and that are lower impact and lower footprint. There's an intuitive response from, I think, an increasing number of people that this just makes sense, that we can't function the way we're functioning. Sustainability is a really odd word that I try to use less and less, but I think if you look at the definition of it in its most basic sense, it's that you want to be able to keep doing what you're doing. And so again, why should we have to prove some exact ROI that it makes sense to invest in the ability to keep functioning and keep operating profitably? That makes no sense to me. So I think more and more people are getting an intuitive sense that these are just issues that you just have to manage, or you're not going to be able to function. You're not going to be a profitable enterprise.